Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. Chag Sameach, happy Sukkos. I'm getting all kinds of interesting lighting here in the Sukkah. It's been a little tricky to light. So we have a very interesting topic. On the first 2 days of Yom Tov of Sukkos, we read about the war of Gog and Magog from Zechariah 14. So what's interesting is there's actually going to be 3 wars of Gog and Magog. This king is called Gog. And what's fascinating is he is related to the word Gog, which means roof. And roof, as you're seeing reflected here, is the exact opposite of the skach. Here, let me see if I can pan up to the skach. There we go. And here we're in a simple hut. And this is what's called a diras arai. It's temporary dwelling. And it's the mitzvah for 7 days to live in the sukkah. And Gog, he represents the exact opposite. The roof, the house, physical power. And we see this, in the West today, in the powers, of America and Europe, these mighty skyscrapers and just these devastating armies, just military technology like unthought of, these amazing fighter jets, supersonic missiles, nuclear weapons, biological weapons, aircraft carriers, helicopters, tanks, just on and on and on. I think have like these robot dogs now, robot mules. It's crazy. The drones. It just, the physical power is represented by Gog, and then the spiritual power is going to be represented by Moshiach ben Yosef and Moshiach ben David. And the true power is the connection to Hashem, the infinite being. And we're going to see these 3 great wars of Gog and Magog. So we're living in very strange times. Baruch Hashem, it seems like Trump's peace plan is finally going to free the remaining hostages. Hopefully, there's many of them that are alive, and even the bodies of those who have been killed, will be available to be buried in the mitzvah of burying them. And it's just been a brutal 2 years since October the 7th. We're coming up again on Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, and we passed already October the 7th. So, what is this war? And it's very strange. Some really strange questions, have been, filtering through my head because I've been thinking about some of these ideas for a long time. And we have certain signs of the coming of Moshiach. And one of the big signs, so we see this in the Gemara in Masechta Avodah Zarah. It's on page Beis Amud Beis. We also see this discussion it's in Yuma. It's Yud, I believe Yud Aman Aleph around 10a, and it's also discussed in Sanhedrin. And there's a debate in the Gemara that before the coming of Mashiach, who will take over the entire world? Will it be Edom or it will be Paras? So the powers of Edom, we'd have to say now, so there's no more Western Roman Empire located in Rome, but you have to say that the most powerful force that's inherited the model of the Roman Empire would be the American Empire, the USA. And the USA is very interesting because the letters USA, it makes up Esav's name. If you take Esav's name, the brother of Yaakov, the brother of Jacob, it's USA. A lot of people get, when the Vav, they're like, oh, it could be a V, but if you put the dot, if you put the Nakuda, you put the vowel to the side of the Vav, it's the U sound. So, it's the USA. And then you would have to say the power of Eastern Rome, which was Constantinople, would now be the Russian Empire. So you have on one side, you have Donald Trump, and you have Vladimir Putin. Now, Trump, I know there's many Jews that are a little more liberal that, have, this whole political rhetoric coming from the left, that he's the Nazi, he's the dictator, he's the Russian spy, I don't know. But let's try to look at just what he's actually done. But it's interesting. His first term does seem very different from his second term. So the first term, I was very surprised. I mean, he did what no American president did before. He moved the capital of the U.S. Embassy, to Jerusalem. He declared the Golan Heights part of Israel. And he seemed to have a great affection for the Jewish people. His daughter, Ivanka, is a Gioris, a convert, married Jared Kushner. But right before the second term, I don't know, it seemed like something was changing. It was strange. right? His other daughter, Tiffany, now has married, I believe, a very wealthy, like, Arab businessman. And it seems the second term he's grown very, very close to Qatar. And from his first term, he had a close relationship with Saudi Arabia, and that goes way back. I mean, it goes back to, like, the relationship of Saudi Arabia and the West. You can go back to, Lawrence of Arabia and the British Empire, and then, the Rockefellers, the oil, Standard Oil, and the deals with Saudi Arabia. And there was that strange time he went to Saudi Arabia, and there was this, like, illuminated globe. And I forgot who it was. I think it was, like, President Trump and the King of Saudi Arabia, and I forgot who the third world leader was, and they all had their hands on the globe. It was very strange. So it says, so getting back to the war of Edom and Paras, so it says, like, it's a debate. Is it going to be Iran, or is it going to be Edom, which would be, either America or Russia, or a combination maybe of the USA and Russia? Who's going to rule the entire world? Now, the entire world means the entire world. It means also Eretz Yisrael, and they would rule it for 9 months, and this is what's called the Chevlei Mashiach, the footsteps of Mashiach. And it seems like we're really, really close. There does seem to be something very strange about this new peace plan. I really felt that it's been strange, saying that America will take over Gaza, and we haven't seen anything like this in history since there was a civil war. So those people are familiar with the Maccabees, the Hashmonaim. Judah Maccabee was the son of Mattisyahu, and the sons of Mattisyahu, and there was this great revolt against the Greek Empire. And then the Hashmonaim, even though they were Levium, they were Levies, they became kings. And then as it went from generation to generation, they became more and more assimilated into Greek culture. So finally, soon you had like a king like Yanai, like Janus, and then you finally got to the last generation, the Hashmonaim kings, and you had the civil war, I believe it was between Aristobulus and Hyrcanus. And they called on Rome. So why would they call on Rome? Because Rome was founded by Esau's children. So, we have a brotherly relationship. It's been a tough brotherly relationship, but there's a relationship between Yaakov and Esau, Jacob and Esau. And then I believe like General Pompey was the first one to come in. And then it's like, don't worry, we'll come in, we'll take over, And so then there was Antipater, who was a wealthy merchant, and he was a convert from Esau, the Edomian. That was the ancient place of Edom began in, like, I believe it's what's now southern Jordan. Probably Petra was built by them. And then Antipater and Rome, they put Herod on the throne, King Herod. And then on the year 0, now Rome completely took control. And now, even though Herod's sons had ruled like a split up kingdom, Rome was completely in control, and that's when the Gullus Edom really begins. And that was in the year 0. So it's kind of interesting. So it seems that we're in the year 2025. Hashem improved my lighting. It seems like 2025 now, 2026 soon, and that's the exact years, I believe, of the Gullus Edom. So if America were to take over Israel, like how or why would it happen? Because it's interesting, because America's been such a great friend of Israel since its inception. I heard an amazing story when I was at Ner Yisrael. I was in Rabbi Yisachar Franz Shir, and he told a story about Harry Truman, that I believe he grew up in Missouri, and when Harry Truman was younger, he helped a Jewish family he was close to out on Shabbat. He helped them do things on Shabbos. And he dreamed one day of being like King Koresh, King Cyrus, that he would do something great for the Jewish people. And amazingly enough, in 1948, right, Harry Truman, President Truman, he was the first world leader to recognize, Israel. And that was a big step. And America is a very powerful nation, as we'll get into very soon. And there's always been this close relationship. And it seems surprising. Even it's so beautiful, but yet so strange, that like Donald Trump was saying that we're going to get our hostages back. And I believe all the American, all the Israelis that have dual American citizenship, I believe they've already been freed. So it's very interesting. You have the President of America talking about getting Israeli hostages back, and he's talking about our hostages, which is a beautiful thing. But then it started getting me thinking, well, this also sounds like, like the Pharaoh, and like the Roman emperors, where they say, the Jews, they're my people, they're my people, and there's this conflict, like Hashem's like, let my people go, we're Hashem's people. So it does seem strange that it would happen, but it seems that now we're in a more likely scenario with this new peace plan where something like that actually could happen. So it's very strange, especially with Trump saying he's going to be something like the chairman of the board of this like Gaza redevelopment plan, and then surprisingly Tony Blair is part of the plan. Interestingly enough, I believe he's related to Eric Blair, who I believe went under the pen name of George Orwell, who wrote 1984 and Animal Farm. So 2025 is seeming a lot like 1984. So, right, it would be strange, but I could see America at some point saying, you know, like, we have to come in, we have to take over because, you know, this conflict is going on too long. You know, Trump's always saying, I hate wars, I want to end the conflict, and America would take it over to end the fighting between the Israelis and the Arabs. So, yeah, it's strange, but it seems like we could be right on the brink of what it was talking about in the Gemara. So then, the first Gog, when we go back to Gog and Magog, the first Gog is described as the Nasi, the prince, who rules from Meshech and Tuval. So this is very interesting. So Meshech, according, I believe, to the Pnei Moshe, is Moscow. Tuval, I believe everyone agrees that that's Turkey. So we see here now Putin moving further and further across Ukraine, which is right next to Turkey. And it was interesting, when Trump threatened Putin responded very aggressively by sending drones into Europe and into, I believe, Alaska. So we see these two kings. I mean, Putin, for sure, is very close to the status of a king. I mean, the elections there are kind of, you know, I don't know. And I think that's been a lot of the political opposition to Trump in America. I believe that even some people on the right are afraid of Trump, you know, becoming almost like a Julius Caesar type figure, you know, someone that goes from a democratic rule to, you know, basically he'll become like, you know, a king of America, king of the American Empire. So he definitely does have a little bit of that personality. Right, so it is strange because he has, you know, been, you know, good to the Jewish people, and he does seem like he likes the Jewish people. But it could be because of that relationship, he could, by wanting to help, could, you know, come in and take over, you know, all of Israel. So then, who would be this first Gog? So I said before there was 3 wars of Gog and Magog, and the first Gog will invade northern Israel, and then Hashem will defeat him. And then the next war will be towards the middle. I believe that's in the valley of Megiddo, who I think that's where the name Armageddon comes from. And then the third will be the most fierce battle that was mentioned in the prophecy of Zechariah, and that will be in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim. And that's the battle where it's the debate if Mashiach ben Yosef dies or not. So, I mean, so I could see there was a teaching in 2014 from Rabbi Moshe Sternbach, and he's a descendant of the Vilna Gaon, the Gra. And he said during Purim at a Suda, he was giving a drasha, and he said, it's a very interesting thing. He said, when the Russians come into Crimea, start to get ready for Mashiach, and when they cross the Bosphorus Strait into Constantinople, put on your Shabbos clothes, don't take them off, Mashiach's coming. So we do see Putin now more aggressively starting to conquer possibly all of Ukraine, and then if this is what the Vilna Gaon was talking about, we would see an invasion of Russia into Constantinople. Now, it's interesting, Turkey is a NATO country, so that would seem, you know, like, how would you do that? But if you had this massive, you know, turmoil in the world where America was actually taking over Israel, that would give Russia ample opportunity, while everyone's distracted by that, to come over into Constantinople. So why would they want to take over Constantinople? So Emperor Constantine, he built the city. There's very ancient churches there that were turned into mosques after it was conquered by Muhammad II. And I'm sure Putin, being a Russian Orthodox, would love to return those back into churches, and that's where the Council of Nicaea, I believe, was formed. I believe it was somewhere around 214, I don't know, somewhere around there, and that's where Christianity officially became the religion of the Roman Empire. So we see a lot going on. We see a lot going on. So what to remember, especially during Sukkos, is the great power of the Jewish people. As we see with the Arba meaning, the 4 species, the Lulav and the Esrog, the Hadassim and the Arapos, all the different types of Jews coming together. And that's our great power. When we have that Eged, when we have the unity, when we're echad, when we're one nation, there's great power in that. Even when we were under a wicked king, like King Ahab, who was worshiping Avodah Zarah, and he was married to the famous evil queen Jezebel, and they were getting the nation to worship Avodah Zarah. But even in those evil days with this evil king, because the Jewish people were so unified, no one would die going out to war, just like in the wars of the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses. So there's great power just in unity, and then with the unity not only with each other, but the unity with Hashem. Then, as we learn the lesson from the Sukkah, we have the tzeil of Emunah, the shadow of Emunah, the trust in Hashem. We know that nothing, no force on earth could stop us. So if we see these crazy events start to unfold into the world, know we are close, and know we're just in the final birth of Moshiach in the last 9 months. So I don't know. Very interesting times we live in. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Please give me your comments. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe. Please help me out if you can. It'll be a great help if you enjoy it and you share it. And have a great Sukkos. We're heading into Shabbos, Sukkos, and I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah. All the best.